I may be Gen Z, but in some ways I identify with Gen X. No, really. You want to know why? It's because I grew up with more Gen X video games. Not as much the movies and shows, to some extent, yeah. But I really didn't get into modern gaming beyond the first two Lego Star Wars games on a PC. Not like a hardcore gaming PC, but like a laptop that was able to run it. Hey, don't look at me. My dad's the one who set all that up. I just do. I just played the Lego Star Wars games, the first two. The third one, the complete saga, well, then complete at the time. I'll get to that in a minute. So I mentioned in my video about the day I got my 3DS and why I was so happy about getting my own console with my own money for the first time was because I got it all to myself, which was cool. I mentioned in the build up to that how I basically only had whatever my parents were willing and able to get. So in preschool and kindergarten, we and I would mostly play an NES and a PlayStation 1, a systems that came out in 85 and 94 respectively, which was really cool to me at the time because I got to play the original Super Mario Brothers, which everyone in my family was obsessed with. There was always the argument between calling the green mushroom a free guy or a one up. It was an extra life. That's what matters. And it was on the Wii Virtual Console version when I rescued the princess for the first time that I was really happy about because I'd never been able to do it up until then. But we'll back to that in a second. Yeah, those were the main two in preschool and kindergarten. But most of them weren't even contemporary games. Well, the NES was obviously not so contemporary by the late 2000s. I mean, the early 2000s. Yeah, by then it was the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. My cousin had a GameCube that I got the privilege of playing on when we went over to his and my aunt's house. That's where I developed my nostalgia for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which is why Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, was so amazing to me. But at home, yes, until up until the age of 10, it was the two consoles I mentioned and the PC that was mostly just Lego Star Wars, or it's the video game and Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. And then the PS1 games are mostly arcade compilations and such. So instead of playing the likes of whatever was contemporary at the time for the PlayStation 1, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, I think were PS1 exclusives at the time, but we didn't use it for that. We used it for arcade compilations. Williams arcade classics like Defender, Defender 2, Joust, Sinistar. Basically, kind of games that were all on arcade cabinets. Yeah, looking over at the stack of them that I still have, I have we had Qbert, which allowed us to play both a revamped version of it and the original arcade game from 1982. Yeah, I was more into a game that was 15 years older than me. Oh, Xevious, that was another one. Yeah, I was more into the 8-bit graphics games at the time. Oh, Konami Arcade Classics was another compilation. You know what? I have to go over there and actually get the. Sorry, I just need to remind myself what games are on here because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Oh, here's one that I particularly liked: Robotron X. Well, the original Robotron was also on one of these. Qbert game. This one doesn't. Oh, Root Beer Tapper, which was actually a modified version because it was just Tapper because let's just say that ESRB would probably automatically give it an M rating if you were playing as a guy who was serving actual alcohol, which I had nothing against at the time. Which I had nothing against. Actually, as someone who personally does not like to glorify alcohol consumption, I'm all for the change to root beer tapper. All right, what other specific arcade games are on here? Asteroids, Bubbles, Pole Position, Pac-Man and Galaga, obviously, which you can still find in some. You can still find it in some places, like the movie theater I go to. They have this Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Galaga 25th anniversary arcade cabinet, which is obviously already ancient because the 25th anniversary of Pac-Man was in 2005. That cabinet is at least 20 years old now. It must get passed around quite a bit. Last I checked when I was over there, they actually needed to. I think there was some screen burn-ins. They need to replace the display. All right, what games were on the arcade classic? Oh, Circus Charlie, Rock and Rope, Gyrus. I think that's how you pronounce it. Puyon, Time Pilot, Rock and Rope. I already showed off Robotron X, but I also played the original. See, this is why I loved Ready Player One when that came out. Because I grew up playing these games because James Halliday was a Gen Xer. Yeah, based on his in-universe age, he actually because he was a teenager in the 80s. So that means he would have been born around the same time as my mom or dad. So late 60s, early 70s. So he'd have to have been born in 67 to have been a teenager throughout all of the 80s or as much of it as possible. Turned 13 in 1980 and then 23 by 23 in 1990. You do the math. Anyway, all of this is to say, when I describe the games of my childhood up until the age of 10, I'd probably sound a lot older than I actually am if I hadn't blatantly stated it, or if this was a faceless video, or if it was just the written word. You'd probably think this guy must be in his mid 50s if he's talking about these specific games and when they came out. No, I just grew up playing them a lot. Especially because up until that point, we'd also make recurring trips to Fun Spot. It's the world's largest arcade up in Laconia, New Hampshire. Oh boy, they've got even more of the classics, including but not limited to everything on those discs that I just name dropped. The Tron arcade game, which weirdly enough, I did not get to the movie until 2012. I should have gotten to the original movie in 2010 when Tron Legacy was coming out and it was all the rage. I didn't get into Tron until Tron Uprising, which I'm not going to go into that right now. Yeah, so I got to play on all the arcade cabinets like that. Dragon's Lair, that was another one. Though that one's been brought to a little more prominence recently thanks to Stranger Things Season 2. I may not have gotten to play it in its heyday in 1983. Well, that season took place in 84, but it came out in 83. I may not have gotten to play that during its heyday, but I still got to play it on an arcade cabinet. Gauntlet, that's another one. Oh wait, I've got a PS3. Okay, more games. Rampage, the before it was a movie with The Rock, it was a video game. Spy Hunter, that one, I like that one. And I just remembered the Star Wars arcade game. Well, there were multiple ones. First, there was this vector graphics version of it. This vector graphics game where you basically just played the attack on the Death Star. And then there was also this late 90s one that had 3D graphics and such, where you had this I don't want to call it a joystick. It was one of those big handle ones. But it was kind of like that, like the vector graphics Star Wars game, but with 3D graphics and with lightsaber duels from the original trilogy. I think it probably was made in anticipation of the Phantom Menace. Gauntlet, that one was always a fun one. And it wasn't just with game compilations like that. There were also ones we had and my dad would get for the PC and he would install them and we had this arcade button arcade buttons and joystick thing to simulate, which I really enjoyed. But by the time I was 10, it was time that I caught up with modern gaming. well, modern at the time, contemporary gaming. Because on my 10th birthday, I finally got my own GameCube. I'm trying to recall if, no, I just realized if, no, I did, I don't think it was completely my own money, or it was with birthday money that I got on a GameCube at Circuit City in 2007 around my 10th birthday. I was just about to realize that would actually make me have to put an asterisk next to the 3DS video, because if I bought that complete with my own money, then technically that's not, the 3DS would be the second console I bought with my own money. The first 3DS is the first one I saved up for and bought with my own money outside of Christmas and birthday money. That here, let's go with that. Yeah, I had that for about 7 months, and then my dad bought a Wii bundle with Sonic and the Secret Rings, and an extra Wii remote and two nunchucks. That's the joystick like plug-in. Yeah, had to get if you wanted to play anything that, if you wanted to play much else beyond whatever could just be played with the Wii remote. And just when I thought I was away from the retro games and into contemporary gaming, they pulled me back in with the Virtual Console. That was the service for buying retro games. That was how I got into more of the Super NES and Nintendo 64 games, to fill the gaps between the NES and what NES games I grew up with, along with all the other arcade games of the time. The ones that, if I list as the games I played growing up, would make me sound a lot older than I actually am. Yeah, basically let me fill in the gaps between that and the still relatively recent GameCube, which was all completely playable on the Wii, by the way. I believe I did sell that GameCube eventually. I'll admit I was trying to. The reason I got that GameCube is because I wanted to mimic the fact that my cousin had one, which I was a little envious of. I won't lie. But you know what? It's all good. By that point, I caught up to somewhat of more contemporary games. Most kids in my school were more of a PS3 or Xbox 360 users by the time of middle school. Me personally, if I had to choose between, no, I wanted the I wanted the PS3 or 360. I still, by then I was in the mindset where I kind of wanted to fit in, and but I also wanted to enjoy it. I'd say by the start of 7th grade is when I realized that Nintendo consoles were more than enough. Like, I realized again in June of last year when I traded in my PS5 and Series S and said, my Switch is all I need. And if I, because all the PlayStation, Xbox exclusives are coming to PC, and if I really, really want to play something that I can't play on the Switch, I will probably get a Lenovo Legion Go or a Steam Deck and figure it out from there. Probably the Lenovo Legion Go, in the hopes that it has more games that I can play than the Steam Deck. whatever gets me the Switch form factor without the admitted limitations. But anyway, I think I've gone on long enough. Because I'm realizing that the contemporary games of from when I was in late elementary school and early middle school, those are now basically as far removed, if not more far removed from. No, they're closing in on being as far removed from their original release compared to the original release of all the games that I listed in that. Let me put it to you this way: a lot of the games that I grew up with later, or from my middle school and high school years, they are creeping up on being 20 or more years old, just like the games that my dad grew up with that he shared on compilations like these ones, because this is one I bought with my own money to make it easier. The only reason I almost regret selling my Xbox Series S is because I have Midway Arcade Collection on my Xbox account, and now I have no way of playing that. That's this one here with the 360 version. If anyone in the comments but down below knows how to, if it can be playable on a gaming PC so that I can, so that if and when I can get my hands on Lenovo Legion Go, I can do that, please let me know. But anyway, that's going to do it for the video. The point I'm trying to make is I am Gen Z, but Gen X at heart in some regards. Obviously, I didn't grow up with the whole latchkey kid thing that most Gen Xers were. I didn't have some of the other things, but I had their video games. I had their movies and TV. So comment down below how you feel about older media like that. As someone, comment down below how you feel about older media about media from the older generations and whether you enjoy any of it. Give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I will see you soon.